Hi, Chris. Great to have you back again.
Thank you.
I don't think you really need too much of an introduction since we are here quite regularly together.
We've done a few of these, yes.
We have done a few. So today we're going to be talking about passwords.
Okay.
Now, before everyone goes, oh, I know all about passwords, it is something that we kind of need to touch base on quite regularly because, you know, things are changing with AI and all that sort of thing. So
No, agreed. Like when you said, oh, okay, you know, we've got the next podcast coming up. What are we talking about? And we had a couple of topics there and, you know, passwords were on there again. And you kind of think, really?
Yeah.
Passwords? But the interesting thing is whenever I bring up passwords normally at the live events and I have people there, I will say certain things and I can visibly see on people's faces that they need to go and change something. Like you could see the
look of fear.
Yeah. So even though I go, okay, we've been talking about passwords for the last good 8 to 10 years, like often the same sort of thing. But I don't know if it's just like there's too many things or you don't get around to it. It's one of those kind of like, oh yeah, I'll sort that out at some other time. And then all of a sudden you get that email from whichever provider that goes, we're sorry, we got hacked. Your passwords are out in the open or whatever the story is. So you get caught up in some sort of breach, you know. And there are ways to minimize that. So that's what we're going to talk about. We just want to go through what are those things exactly.
Yes, exactly. So that everyone can stay as safe as possible. So
Absolutely.
just touching on that, the getting an email from your provider about being involved in a data breach. How often would you say that's happening these days? Are you seeing it more?
Not necessarily more. I think it's been a lot anyway. So, you know, and then you get the big ones that kind of take over media. So, you know, the Optus, Medibanks, etc. Those are obviously take up the limelight. But generally there's lots all the time. There's just smaller ones, ones that may not necessarily be reported on either. So, yeah, it is happening all the time. So we still need to be managing our passwords effectively.
Yeah, because, I mean, that is a scary email to get.
It's not ideal.
No.
It's not ideal. I think, you know, a lot of the time the advice is the same. It's about changing the passwords. It's making sure that you're not using the same passwords on other services that you have. So don't reuse your passwords, in other words. And then being vigilant. But the interesting thing is we always say, but you'd need to be vigilant all the time. So getting emails that are asking for information or asking you to log in somewhere, you should always be vigilant around those sort of things. But that's the general gist of it.
So how's it sort of changed, do you think, over the last few years with passwords and that sort of thing, like having to tighten them up? And I know you're always saying don't reuse it, make sure it's extra long. Yeah.
It has changed a little bit, and that's because of, you know, computers obviously get faster and faster every year. So you'd need longer passwords to keep the same sort of security. So that is a thing. But the other thing is they've tightened up what those controls look like. So some of the advice has changed a little bit, especially on corporate accounts. So the idea is with the kind of use of MFA these days, one of the things that did change, for instance, is the recommendations from NIST, Microsoft, all the kind of big vendors, was you don't need to change passwords regularly. Which is very different for people.
Yes.
So normally they told, change your passwords every quarter or, you know, twice a year or once a year or whatever it is. And there's normally a number people would stick with. And unfortunately for some people, they'll work in organizations where they're changing passwords every month.
Oh, I remember we were doing that.
Now, if you recall, the problem with doing that is people immediately look for a shortcut to do that. So I've got to remember my password, which is relatively long, and then don't forget it's uppercase, lowercase numbers and symbols, right? And it's got to be at least 12 characters long. So it's complicated. So when you're changing it every month, people are just going to whack on a 1, 2, 3 as the month changes, right? And hackers obviously know that. Yes. So it's way easier to crack a password if you know that there's some sort of pattern in the password. So people are literally tagging on, you know, February or, you know, Feb, Jan, etc. And that doesn't help at all. So that is the advice change, is going, okay, don't force your people to keep change, because they will literally put it on sticky notes because it gets too complicated,
Yes,
right?
that's right.
So to avoid that, it's so the current advice is basically the longer the password is, the better. The complexity requirements are not that important.
Okay.
So the uppercase, lowercase numbers and symbols are not as important as the length. So for instance, if I take uppercase, lowercase, numbers, and a symbol in an 8-character password, right, that's going to be broken almost instantly. If I do a 16-character password that's just all lowercase letters, that's fine. That will last way longer than your 8-character
Wow.
complex password.
That's surprising.
Yeah, look, don't get me wrong. If you use a phrase that's common, that's looked up in a dictionary, it would also be cracked instantly. It's got to be something relatively random. So if you go like, I don't know, 3 gray elephants, it's long, but that's might be cracked pretty quickly. It's standard words being put together. So
it's best to have gibberish then.
You get creative, but that you can remember.
Yes, okay.
So it's still something that you can remember. Like the password I've used for quite a while now is, because you don't need
tell
to
us what
change
it is.
Definitely won't. But I do use complexity in it, but because I can remember where it is. So I'll give you an example. So I've come up with a phrase that's pretty out there, right? It's pretty random phrase. And I've got a number in the front that depicts whatever I'm talking about first. So for instance, 34 elephants as an example. But then I go like, wandering through the woods, blah, 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 blah. It's long. But then I don't use the whole words. I just use the first letter of all the words. And where I've got the word "the" in the sentences, I'll use like an uppercase T. So all of a sudden, I've got a 23-character password, which I can rattle off really quickly because I know what the phrase is.
Yes.
Right? It's super complex and it's long.
So you'd be using something like this for, say, like your last password.
Yeah. So something for a master password that's securing your password database. So your password manager is definitely the way to go. Again, teamed up with multi-factor authentication. So you're not relying on just that password, especially for your password manager.
Yeah, okay.
Which kind of leads us onto password managers. Yes,
exactly. Well, I was actually going to say, because obviously I hear you talk about password managers all the time. We've talked about it multiple times on the podcast. So when I try and explain it to, say, my mum, my husband, they're sort of like, well, how does that actually work? How does that keep it secure? Like, what happens if that gets hacked and then
I suppose the key thing there is...
ask Chris.
It can get hacked. So, LastPass has had a problem before. And so they do have problems as well, definitely. But the key thing here is the average person has more than 100 passwords. And at first you go, no, I don't. And it's like, it's your gym login and it's this and it's that. There's so many things that you don't think about. You signed up for Light and Easy. There's a password there. It's just, there's so many. If you actually start adding them, it's ridiculous. And then you have a security expert that, like me, that goes, don't reuse your passwords. And they go, how am I remembering 100 passwords?
Yes.
It's just, you can't, right? As soon as you go above like 10, you're going to start to struggle. So use a password manager. The very next question I'll get from that though is, okay, but all my passwords are stored in the browser. It's doing the password management. And that's where I go, don't do that. And they're like, okay. So what
That's
am I
exactly
doing
the
then?
questions I've been getting.
The problem is with the browser's not secure. Like, there's been so many bits of malware that have come out that will actually specifically grab a copy of the passwords from the browser.
Wow.
So, and we're talking about what's called a drive-by hack as well. So you don't even need to click on anything. You would go onto a website, it would run some ad that's got malware embedded in, unbeknownst to the actual provider of the website. This happened to the Financial Times as an example.
Really?
So it happens everywhere.
Okay.
So because they sell advertising, and then they might not necessarily check that the ad that they've provided on their website is clean. So malware's been embedded in the ad. people browse to the website and it just grabs all the passwords. They don't even know it's being grabbed. Nothing popped up on the screen.
Oh,
So that's why I tell people don't use your browser. So Chrome, I don't care what you're using, don't store your passwords in there. So next is when you do get a password manager, make sure you delete your passwords out of your browser and then switch it off. So when it says, oh, do you want me to store the passwords for you? You go, no, don't store the passwords. I'll store them in my password manager. And then you get an extension that goes into the browser that's secure to the password manager.
Yes.
So it's still there. It's still easy to use. It's still going to fill in the passwords for you. So that's definitely what you want to do.
That's actually really good to know, because that is definitely, when I mentioned having password manager to like friends and family, that is, well, but I already installed them and that's secure because in my keychain or whatever it's called.
Well, the keychain's an interesting one. So if you are on an Apple device and you're using the keychain password manager, that is a secure password manager, right? It probably doesn't have all the features that a password manager would, because a password manager is design specific. So I would still say, look at using a password manager. If you absolutely don't want to, you are on an Apple, a keychain is way better than storing it in your browser.
Okay.
Definitely. So that is a thing. But the top level advice is use a password manager. So Google Password Manager, there's LastPass, 1Password, Dashlane. There's so many out there that you could use.
Are there any that you don't recommend? Or any that are not as
specifically? I'd probably pick one that is well known. So like I'd rattle off a few. If you do a Google search, they're going to pop up at the top generally.
Yeah.
Speak to friends and family of who's using them. You know. So personally, I've used LastPass and I've used 1Password. I'm kind of happy with either. I find, but there are others out there that are just as good. You know, whether it's Dashlane or whatever. There's Keeper is quite popular as well. So there's a couple that you could use. Is it an effort initially? Yes.
Oh, yes.
It
I can
is.
definitely vouch for that.
And that's where you have to just kind of set out, well, do it in chunks. Like don't try and tackle it all in one go. So install the password manager, set up a decent master password, enable the MFA, the multi-factor authentication. So it's sending a code to your phone or something along those lines. And we'll speak more about that later. And then open up the browser. Now, for a lot of them, you can actually import your passwords directly from your browser because they know you're using your browser. So so there's an import. It goes, do you want to import the passwords from Firefox, Chrome, Edge? You go, yep. Some you have to take a few more steps. It will walk you through step by step. Go into here, click here, export. It exports the passwords. And then on your password manager, you click File, import the passwords, and it will all come through.
Oh, I should have asked you about this ages ago.
But as soon as it imports into that, then go into the browser and delete them.
Okay.
Because otherwise you're going to have them in two places. They get taken from the one side. You think they're secure in your manager, and they're not. They're already been taken off the browser. So definitely password manager. Once you get a password manager and you start, you'll never look back.
I love it now.
Yeah.
And I love it when it, suggests the big long password and I go, no problem.
Yeah, because you don't know any of the passwords. That's what I say to people. It's like, I only know my master password. Like I do not know any of my passwords. That most of them are 90 plus characters long. Oh my
like
goodness. Where the website
I don't know if mine are like quite
well, you
that
just go
long.
in there and it goes, how long do you want the button? You just drag the slider all the way over. It's like 99.
I think I'm normally stop at about 16 or 20.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter as long as it's long enough. But the thing is, if you don't have to remember it and you're not typing it in,
then exactly.
It doesn't matter. And then it syncs to your phone. So, whether you're logging onto your banking on your phone, it's putting the password in automatically for you. The other good thing about that is you're not typing the password. So even if you had a piece of malware called a keylogger installed on your machine unbeknownst to you, a keylogger can't grab it because you're not typing it in. It's been filled in automatically by the password manager. So a keylogger can't grab it either.
So that's a bit of an added bonus.
There's a lot of benefits of using it. So it's definitely high-level advice is decent passwords, long enough is important versus complexity. Decent master password, pair that up with multi-factor authentication and use a password manager. Your password manager can also manage your MFA pieces as well. So providing codes and stuff to log in. Like normally you use an authenticator, Google Authenticator or, Cisco Duo or, the Microsoft Authenticator. There's lots of different authenticators that you can use. Your password managers can normally manage those bits for you as well. Some can. So
what is the difference with all the MFA? Like, we're told to put MFA on, but there's so many different, I'll sometimes get something pop up and say, oh, you need to MFA, and it'll be like, oh God, what app am I? Authenticator, Google. It's like, or I've like uninstalled it because I don't have enough storage, so I'm trying to reinstall it. Often hear MFA, 2FA, are they the same thing? Not the same thing?
Yeah, technically different, but the same. Essentially, it's kind of a broader term, smaller term type thing. So 2FA is just two-factor authentication. So the idea is you got one factor, your password, and then another factor, whether it's facial recognition, thumbprint, PIN, or code to your phone, something else, a different factor. Multi-factor, same sort of thing. It could still be two, but it might be more as well. So, so generally they refer to as MFA in most cases, but 2FA, you'd see it as the same thing. So it's just switching on 2FA or MFA. So multi-factor authentication is what you want.
Because there's lots of different ways that you can kind of receive that, and it probably depends on what provider or platform you're using.
Yeah, agreed. So what you're talking about is the different MFA or 2FA types that you can get. So like I said, thumbprint or PIN or facial recognition or code to your phone or etc. So this is quite important. And from a business perspective, we are seeing many more breaches that are taking place. Like we've literally dealt with 2 breaches in the last 2 weeks. So it happens all the time. And what was significant about this, though, is they breached the MFA. In other words, the clients had MFA turned onto the account, and it was still breached. Now, a lot of people go, oh, wait, hold on a second. You told me you're putting on MFA, I'm safe.
Safer.
Yes. Nothing's 100%.
Yes.
But what we need businesses to start doing now and start looking at and migrating to is what's called phish-resistant MFA. So let me explain how they break into an MFA situation, because you think MFA has got to be safe, right? Because I'll run through the scenario. Username and password, hit enter on your Microsoft account, you're logging in, and it pops up onto your phone going, is this you logging on? And sometimes it says enter the numbers, like let's say 12, and you'd enter 12 and it would log you on, right? So that is an MFA situation. It's being pushed to the phone. There's a code. You go, yes, this is me. I'm logging in. So generally you'd use push authentication as seen relatively safe. You go, yes, this is me. Now, there's a couple of ways around that. One is called MFA fatigue. So think you at work, you've logged in and you've gone, yes, this is me. And you're busy working in a Word document or PowerPoint. You're trying to get my next event ready for me. Thank you. And you're busy working away and your phone pops up and goes, is this you trying to log into Microsoft? So you're busy working. So you go, no, that's like a bit odd. And you carry on working and it pops up again on your phone. You're like, no. And it just keeps dinging, ding, ding, ding. And eventually you go, like, what is up with the, like, I'm logged in, I'm working, I'm logged in already. And you hit yes.
Uh-oh.
And now you've logged someone else on. So, and that happens to large organizations as well. So it actually happened to Cisco a few years ago, where someone, a remote worker using a VPN into their systems, MFA fatigue, just keep dinging her phone. And she went, yes. And it logged someone in. They got onto it pretty quickly to sort out, but that's what can happen. So that's MFA fatigue. That's the first one. The other one's called an adversary in the middle attack. Some people know it as a man in the middle attack. So the idea is just the criminal gang essentially sitting in between you and what you're trying to authenticate to.
Okay.
So what they'll do is it could start with a standard phishing email. So they send you an email that says, Martin is sharing a document with you on SharePoint. Click here to get the document. Now, Martin shares documents with you on SharePoint. So you go, okay, click, right? and it takes you to a Microsoft login page. But the idea here is that's not Microsoft's page. That's their page in between. So you logging onto their page, right?
Yes.
Now, it looks exactly the same. There's no difference. So you put your username and password in, and what happens is they then proxy that to the real Microsoft site. So the real Microsoft site goes, Alicia's trying to log in, sends the MFA code to you, right? Now, you're trying to log in, so you go, yes, this is me, right? And they proxy that again to the real site. The real site passes back basically an authentication token that your browser then stores for your session. So it doesn't keep asking you for your username and password, so that you can work in Word or whatever you're using without being re-prompted for the password all the time.
Yes.
So it's kind of like a key, a token. So when that token comes back, the criminal gang grabs a copy of the token and passes it on to you, and you log in and you are none the wiser. You get your document, it all looks normal to you, and you logged in. But now they have the token. So from their perspective, they don't need your username and password or your MFA. All they do is they install the token into their browser and then connect directly to Outlook, and they've got your mail. It doesn't prompt them at all because the token authenticates you.
Yes, okay.
Right. So there are ways of then tying that token to your device and things like that, but we're kind of not there across all of it. So generally what happens is you have this token theft that happens with a adversary in the middle type attack. And this is what happened to literally 2 clients last week. And we're seeing more and more of this take place. So what you want is you want the phish-resistant MFA methods. And the way to do that is you see that there was that piece in the middle, the adversary in the middle. Now what happens is your client is not authenticating that is Microsoft's page.
Okay.
Right? So there is a way to actually do dual authentication. So it's not just you authenticating yourself to Microsoft. Microsoft's authenticating itself to your machine.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's where you start to get to the passwordless login or passkeys. So what I tell people is, yeah, you got MFA, that's your next step, etc. But what you do need to do is start to move over to passkeys. So Google supports it, Microsoft, there's a bunch of places, Facebook, whatever. Go and enable passkeys, sometimes known as passwordless authentication as well. But passkeys is basically storing a certificate on your machine. You're getting a dual authentication happening. So your machine knows it's logging onto the right site, because if there's someone in the middle, it breaks that authentication step, right, immediately. So you're getting a better authentication method. For businesses, you've got like 2 major options that you'd be looking at. You'd be looking at using passkeys through something like Windows Hello for business, right? So it's a facial recognition thumbprint pin, and it will log you in without your password. So that's where they go, it's passwordless. So that's logging onto the system.
Okay, that makes sense.
And the other one is using a hardware key.
I've heard you talk about that before.
Yeah, so we carry keys around. I've got one in my pocket. So it's a YubiKey is a common one. There are others, but it's a hardware security key. So the idea is you're logging in, it will ask you for your key, you plug it into a USB port, and quite often you have to touch it to authenticate. So the idea is that touching is making sure that there's a human sitting at the terminal. So if you just got your machine open and you got the key plugged in, and someone manages to hack in and remote control your machine to they can't log in because they need someone to touch the key.
I didn't know that part about it.
So there's a lot of systems. So for businesses out there, I would definitely have a chat with my IT provider, security provider, whoever, and say, hey, I've heard about the phish-resistant MFA methods or passwordless login or security keys. What does that look like for me? And just have a look at what that looks like.
It's so much for businesses and people in general to think about, isn't it? I mean, I feel like we're only just starting to get the message out there about having a password manager or not repeating the same password. And now it's kind of like onto the next level. And I guess with AI and all that sort of thing, phishing getting just more and more elaborate. It's just so important to stay ahead of the game.
It's always just step by step, right? If I'm speaking to someone new and they don't have a password manager, my first thing is going to be get a password manager. Like, let's start there.
Yeah.
Then once they got a password manager, they're getting used to that. Then I'd be like, okay, hey, you've heard of this Passkeys? And they go, oh yeah, I've seen, because most people have. They go, oh yeah, I've seen a thing about Passkeys. Use them. Start implementing Passkeys everywhere. And again, your password manager can manage Passkeys for you as well.
Okay.
And it's quite good. Like if you've set it up on your machine and then you want to log in on your phone, there's ways that they can QR code the passkeys and that, so you can log into your phone. So there's ways that they could share the passkey between your devices and that, so they can make it work.
Okay.
So it's pretty frictionless, I would say, and also getting to a passwordless system sounds really nice.
Yes.
So that's kind of where we're headed.
It does sound very nice.
It is where we're headed. Yeah.
Now, if if someone was to be involved in a data breach, what, I know you said change the password and that sort of thing. What are criminals actually looking for when when a data breach occurs? Like, obviously they're looking for personal information. What is of the most value? Basically are they trying to sell?
There's a couple of things. So it's either downloading a list that they can sell, but if it's on the dark web already, it's available. So they're not exactly selling anything at that point. So the main thing is being able to steal your identity would be a big one. So they could just use other bits of information that's out there to try and phish you a little bit better. In other words, if I send a phishing email to you that's from CommBank and you don't use CommBank, you just ignore the email, right? So I don't get anywhere. If I know that you use Westpac because of the data breach, then I can send an email from Westpac. Now you're going to pay attention because Westpac is your bank, right? Correct. So, and if I add to that, like there's a date of birth has been released or a driver's license number, and I send you a phishing email and I go, this is from Westpac, just so you know, this is secure. We know your date of birth is blah. You're going to be like, this is Westpac. They know my date of birth and my driver's license, you see?
Yes.
So they're putting factors in there that makes it more believable.
So basically they're just taking bits of the puzzle and trying to make the whole picture.
Pull it together so it's more believable, so you click somewhere. And again, they combine that with some urgency. Hey, we've noticed some large transactions on your account. We have a hold on it at the moment. Here's your date of birth, so you know this is a legitimate from the security department. Please click this link or please call this number now.
We're always talking about that, aren't we, with phishing emails and SMS, that urgency.
Absolutely.
And just taking that extra couple of seconds to stop.
And think about it, yeah. But it's difficult when the information is often confirmed.
Oh, for sure.
Now, that's phishing. The next one, of course, is identity theft, which is potentially way worse, which is, if they do have a copy of your license, as an example, and maybe a Medicare number, they'll have enough for 100 points ID. So then they can go and open a bank account in your name. So they just go online, they provide the verification because they got your ID documents. They open the account, they run that account for a little bit, small funds in and out, and then apply for a $5,000 credit card. Max out the credit card, then disappear. So they've bought whatever they want, shipped it to wherever, and then the bank comes after you. So all of a sudden you've got Macquarie calling you going, your card's overdue, and you're going, what card? I don't bank with Macquarie. And they go, well, it's overdue. We're going to send this to,
And how do you prove
it's hard.
It's because, if everything's done online and it's not sort of face-to-face.
So this is where you'd need to potentially look at something like ID Care. They can help with that, give advice, etc. Like I think I've mentioned it before, having like credit reports
Yes.
and monitoring on credit reports. I've seen now that those are not free
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah, I think we did speak about that.
They've
on a
moved on
past
to a
podcast.
paid service, which fair enough.
Everything does.
So the idea is as soon as it does that credit, because when you apply for a credit card, it will do a credit search. So as soon as that credit search hits your credit file, you would get the notification. So it's not a bad idea to potentially pay for that to avoid that situation, because you'd all of a sudden get a hit from Macquarie Bank on your thing and you'd be like, I haven't applied for anything. You can immediately call Macquarie Bank and go, this is what's happening. They can stop the application and then it doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Otherwise you get in that situation of, like you said, it's hard to then prove it wasn't due, or all those bits of pieces.
Oh, exactly,
right?
because there'd be a lot of people out there that would take advantage of saying, oh, no, it wasn't me.
Yeah, well,
when,
exactly.
potentially it was.
Yeah.
So, I do remember that we did talk about that on a previous podcast, and be interesting actually to see how much they do charge to monitor it. I know we did talk about it at the time.
I did go and look, and I was like, oh, they started to charge for it now. Because I used to use it. Actually, I probably need to, I don't think I pay for it. I should probably go and do that. That's probably...
It probably feels
drifted
like
off.
just like an additional cost at the time, but probably...
So sometimes you get that credit monitoring on certain personal loans, and they might add that as a service. I think Wiser do a service for you.
Yeah, okay.
So they'll give you your experience scores and that. I don't know if they got alerting though. I'm not 100% sure. It's certainly worth looking into.
Yeah, because that would be a nasty little surprise, wouldn't it?
No, not ideal.
No, definitely not. So just back to businesses. So, I mean, the hardest thing is, as we know, is getting staff on board with all these things. If if a business is looking to kind of obviously tighten up their security, what would you recommend is the best way to try and get staff on board and rolling it out, I guess, company wide?
I think the best angle I've seen and what works is often businesses will get like someone like myself in to do an hour like general cybersecurity. And what I do is I don't specifically focus on the business elements of it. I actually focus on the personal side of things. So I actually cover things off like managing your passwords personally for Facebook and your Insta and etc. So because I do kind of feel like if you've got a better security hygiene, password hygiene in your personal life, that's what you want to protect, it will generally carry over to business as well.
Yes.
The other thing to note is for a business, if you're purchasing something like LastPass, as an example, for business, right? It actually gives everyone a free personal account as well. So that's kind of a nice perk from a business to the user for, hey, we're going to move into password managers, but it gives you one to use as well. That's a nice perk as far as I'm concerned, because it's something you don't have to pay for.
And then it just becomes habit, doesn't it? Personal and
you just,
professionally. It's,
correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So that is, I think, very useful. So the idea then being is you've got your own personal one, and then business ones are stored in the business, like there's a business section versus a personal section.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a tough thing sometimes to get staff on board, and
it can be hard just because it's those extra steps and time, right? So you want to make it as easy as possible. And like I said, and as you know, again, experience, once you have a password manager, it's way easier.
So
like you
much
just don't have to
easier,
think about stuff, right? Whereas if you don't have the password manager, it's hard.
Yeah,
like
it is.
if my password manager, for whatever reason, I don't have it, whatever, like I'm not going to remember the password.
no, it's like forgot password.
It's like, you'd have to do the
Just really
forgot
annoying.
password, and it gets complicated. So, password manager is way easier once you got it, and you're more secure then. And so definitely using that is a good practice generally. And then for businesses to start to move on to passwordless,
Yes.
to make things a little bit more frictionless is also a good way. You know, logging onto your machine in the morning because it's just a face scan or thumb or pin is way easier than you putting in your password.
We
every
use
morning.
PIN numbers, and it's
Exactly.
way
so
easier.
now it's just, it's a pin. And this is an interesting one. Like a lot of people could just go, Yeah, but a PIN is not secure. Like it's a 4-digit PIN. I mean, you can make it longer, by the way. But
Well, ours is longer.
let's say it's a 4-digit PIN, and people go like, there's only 10,000 combinations for that, right? But they go, yeah, but that's even less secure. I've got a 16-character password. Now I've got a 4-digit PIN. How does that keep it safe? The key thing here is when you move to Windows Hello with a PIN, that PIN is protecting the certificates on the machine. That means if someone's grabbed your username and password from wherever, man in the middle, phishing, whatever it is, and they're sitting in North Korea and trying to log in, it can't.
Okay.
Because they need the
PIN.
certificates on the machine that's protected by the PIN. So it's not that I can just log in anywhere with the PIN now. That's not how it works, right? So it's tied to that Windows Hello certificate for that machine. And then you could tighten that up even more, whereby you could say you can only log in from a machine that's enrolled into the Microsoft tenant. So we're starting to get onto technical details for a business. But if you have an IT provider, security provider coming to set that up for you, they lock all of that down for you. So only that laptop can log in as you onto that tenant. So if your username and password got stolen via phishing, number one, you've got MFA to try and protect you as well. But let's say you didn't have that. They're still not logging on because it's not your machine.
No, that's right.
Right?
Yes.
So there's ways of adding that extra protection. And so, for instance, all our core applications that we use, you cannot log in from just anywhere. It is a Mercury enrolled controlled device that's got all our security features.
I know. I'm always hitting roadblocks. Like, let me in.
It's got all those key features logged in. So if you went onto your home machine and you went, I'll just log on to, our PSM, whatever we use, you can't. It would just deny your login. So, and again, enabling things like single sign-on. So you log on to Microsoft, and when you log into whatever other application you use, it actually automatically logs you in by virtue of the fact that you logged into Microsoft.
Yes.
That's how you make things easier for users. So they're not, every application they're using, they're not getting username and password and MFA, username and MFA and MFA.
Because I think that's when people get annoyed, and it's just
So you
get
enable
that pushback.
single sign-on, so it's called SSO because we love our acronyms.
Yes.
So single sign-on, and it's tied into the Microsoft. You could tie it to the machine, depending on what you're trying to do, and you can make it frictionless. So you're logging in without a password because it's facial recognition, logs you on. You click onto your customer relationship database that you use. It doesn't even prompt you for a username and password. It just logs you in because you're already authenticated. That's the idea.
Yeah. Okay. That makes it seem a bit more smooth and
Yeah,
easy
like
to
all
operate.
our applications are tied into SSO.
Yes.
So and security keys. So you log in with a security key, but then we've got access to other applications. There's only one or two applications that are not SSO'd for us. We keep them separate because they're security.
Yeah.
So if that got compromised in any way, we still have a separate line for some of our security tools.
Yeah, which makes sense.
They're not SSO.
Yeah. Oh, that's some good information there. Is there anything else that you think is important that people should know about password, passkeys, passless lists?
If we just run from the top, the longer the password, the better. Complexity, less important. If you want to use it, I do. So I still try and keep it as secure as I can, right? So longer passwords. Use a password manager. Delete your passwords out of your browsers.
Yes.
So if you're using Edge, Chrome, whatever you use, take it out and use a password manager. MFA on everything. So go through each application that you use. Facebook, Insta, I think they're tied together anyway. But whatever you use, and go look at whether you can enable MFA. Use the strongest MFA they provide.
Yes.
So in order of kind of weakness, sending a text to your phone is the weakest, right? Doing a push authentication is better. So it pops up on your phone and says, is this you trying to log in?
Okay.
That's pretty good. That's generally the standard at the moment. And then moving to a phish-resistant MFA. So moving to a passkey,
Yes.
passwordless, or security key, hardware key. So for businesses, and again, you don't have to do everyone, right? You could go, oh, I'm going to protect my management because they targeted more, or my accounts payable and accounts receivable.
Yeah.
Protect them more. The rest of the users, you go, okay, they'll just use standard MFA for now, and I'll so phase it.
Yes.
Do this. So kind of in order and get to that passwordless situation because it's going to be more secure. Beyond that, speak to an IT security provider that could start to where I spoke about SSO, tying your laptop into the tenant so it's in tune and rolled, it's locked down. There's those other steps. Yeah.
Okay, some great advice there.
Yep.
Definitely something to think about and put into action, of course.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming along today.
No problem.
And I'm sure I'll see you soon.
Will do. Cheers.
Thanks.